So the traditional thing to do is to you record your tracks and you put all your plugins on the channels, and then you put a you bounce down and you put your stereo plugins on the master bus, and so it gets digitized on the channel. First of all, it gets digitized going in on the recording because the computer digitizes it, your A to D converters. Then you put the plugins on the channels, which re-digitizes it. It sends another signal, and then you put a plugin on the master bus, and then you re-digitize it again, and then you bounce it down, right? So you bounce it down, and then you've got this track that's fully digitized, and then you send it to a mastering place, and they put the mastering plugins on it, and it gets digitized again, and then they bounce it down again. And it's little doubt that there's 1,000,001 musicians out there who listen back to their stuff that they've worked so hard on over the years, and they get to that final stage and they're kind of really unsatisfied with what they're listening to. It doesn't actually sound like anything they did. They can't really hear their performance anymore. It's a weird thing that happens to music, because all you hear is like the singing. Like it's like, oh, there's just this like noise going on in the background, then like a bit of singing at the front. It's very odd. Like, it's really odd, that, to me, because oftentimes when you actually record it and you're just listening to it in the studio after you've recorded, it's like, oh, that's what it sounds like. And for some reason, you spend the entire time after that trying to change what it sounds like by altering everything on the song, redigitizing it. And we found out that that even if you had a mastering plugin on and then bounce it down, it redigitizes it. Like, it's every time you redigitize something, it's doing something to it. People say to you, oh no, it's just numbers, it isn't. It's doing something to it. We tested it out. There's a difference in the sound. And so we did not digitize it more than once. We literally, on the way in, when it came in on the computer, on the very first recordings, that was it. There's no plugins on the bus. There's no nothing, and we didn't even bounce it down in the box in the computer. And this is an important part of how we got the sound we did, because normally what we'd do, you just put a mastering plugin on, then you'd go export, or you just bounce, or whatever it is that your digital audio workstation says, and then it would make a master copy of that with all the plugins on. We didn't do that at all. We avoided doing that completely. What we did instead, we sent it out to another computer. So we didn't want to bounce it down in the box, because that's another process, another stage of digitization, which I just didn't want to do. I didn't want to put that on the tracks. And you could say that's ridiculous lengths we're going to, but I can fucking hear it. I can actually hear that shit. And so what we did is I got the RME Babyface, and I sent it out of the outputs, the stereo mix, out of the outputs into the Metric Halo. And the Metric Halo is a unit I had, I bought it like 15, 20 years ago. And it's a really, really good A to D convert. It still is after all these years. It sounds fantastic. And I sent it into there on another computer. And so I did it on the fly. So I pressed play and I go and press record, and it went down live. So there's no, there's no other and it gets digitized again into the Metric Halo, but not in the box. It's more the Metric Halo 8. We found out that the Metric Halo A to D converters doing it that way had a better sound than if we just bounced it down in the box. It was far better. And so that's what you hear on the record, that we be very careful. You think you just, I'll just bounce it down. Even when you do those things, what do they call it when you take like a comp track and then you just unify the comp track? That changes the sound again. It's the same thing. It does it again, like you bounce it down. I can't remember what they call that. I can't remember, but you know what I mean. And so that process of redigitizing it over and over and over and over again with the plugins and with the da-da-da, you got to be careful, because it's making a difference. It's making a complete difference. And, when you're making natural recordings, it really, starts to stick out. You can really tell what's going on. You can hear that coloration in the background, that digital coloration in the background that actually isn't very nice at all. It doesn't do anything really nice for the music. It doesn't make it more listenable. And the other thing we did is we didn't maximize it or normalize it. And two reasons why we did that. Because number one, when you normalize something and you pin it in your face, I think this is one of the things that modern day engineers do. They make everything loud, as if everything's got to be loud, and so they record it to like 10. Everything's on 10. It's the maximum you can get, and it's all about being loud. And they put the plugins on to be loud, and it's fucking loud, but it has no there's no grace to it really. Everything's loud. It's like if you're in a room and you're talking to somebody like blah 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 blah. You don't want to hear the rest of the audio people in the crowd. You want to hear the person you're talking to, and so the other ones can just go away. They can be way over there, and that's the same as when you're laying out a musical landscape. Everything doesn't have to be in your face. Why does it have to be in your face? Part of what makes an album sound interesting is the fact that the collage in the background, gives the thing you're listening to a focus. But if everything's just loud and everything's like when you just pin back in your chair, there's no grace in that really. And you can probably listen to it once or twice if you're lucky at the same time, because it absolutely exhausts your ears. Your ears can't take that shit in, and that's why without mentioning any names, I've listened to some albums that are the loudest albums on the world and all this stuff, and you can't listen to that shit for too long. It's not good. It's like eating McDonald's food over and over. It's like synthetic music. It makes it synthetic. That's a great word actually, synthetic. The whole music becomes synthetic, and all you're just pinned to the seat with this synthetic noise that that forces you to shut your ears down. You can't handle it. And so the Big Purple Castle, we didn't do any of that. There's none of that. And so again, you might find it 5-6 dB quieter than most people's records, because we haven't got like compressor plugins and mastering and all that stuff. We just got, it's just there's a lot of dynamics on it. Most people, the waveforms on modern music is like that. This one's, definitely like this. If you look at it, it's not very loud, but there's a good thing to that, because in my book, we're not in the business of being loud. We're in the business of doing music. And in this particular case, we're in the business of doing natural sounding music as we could. So we wanted to retain the dynamics of the track. So it goes, which doesn't happen when you compress things. It just sucks it all in. And so this was another really important factor, the mastering stage of what we did. We didn't go to be loud. I mean, if I was in the game of being loud, that's one thing, but I'm not. That's not the game I'm in. I'm in the game of music. I'm in the game of music. And so in the game of music, it's not about being loud. And all those little subtleties that we talked about, redigitizing it over and over and over again. Again, it's not something I ever thought of really in the past. I've done it. I can't tell you how many times I've done that. But with the focus being on natural sounds, all this stuff come up. All this stuff that I was completely unaware of in the past. All of a sudden now it's like, oh my God, and I start to notice it, and I notice how different it is. And so being, this perfect thing, and being, it sometimes isn't a good idea. Sometimes just you is the best thing you'll ever be.